Right. Just to clarify for people who are as confused as I am, the meeting is still at 7:30 a.m. CT, but for non-US or non-UK countries, it's been pushed ahead by an hour because I'm still not very sure why exactly. Because the daily savings time pushes US timing back by an hour. If correct me if I'm
Yeah,
wrong,
that is
please.
to save the time because
Yeah.
the daytime is very short.
Mm-hmm.
Daylight saving.
Yep. Yeah, this caused some confusion. I think Shivai joined the meeting earlier, which is why I put up this clarification. All right. Well, we're 4 minutes in. Let's start. Josh, you want to take this up?
I think there's a newcomer in our call, so like we'll just begin with.
Yeah, I was actually waiting for like 5 more minutes before we do that because other people join in and it's easier to take them together.
Okay, so like should I start now or like wait for them?
Yeah, sure. You can go ahead and start. We'll take up the fresh intros after this.
Okay, so basically the first topic is the lighthouse report. So like in my previous PR, I made some SEO updates and also for improving performance. So like I have added a plugin called the uh, preload fonts, Gatsby preload fonts. So what it does is like it creates basically a JSON map of all the fonts that we are using, and it stores them. So like whenever the site is loaded, while the site gets loaded completely, the fonts can be used from the map itself, and thus it saves so much of like loading time and improves the performance. And the good thing is like we have to create the map only if we like I have created it for once, and like we'll have to run the command to create the map again only if we change any fonts or introduce some new fonts. So like for now on we can just use the like we can just keep it aside and we can just enjoy the performance benefits. And so yeah, this the as you can see in the screen, the this is the lighthouse report. And like also I had created an issue for uh, having the alt text for all of the images, and one of the one of the contributor has like worked so much hard to identify all of the image tags in our website and add alternate text. And so these all things have led to the SEO section 100 reaching to 100 out of 100, and also improving the performance and accessibility. And yeah, so I was also looking for some other plugins that will help us in improving the performance in a more better way. So like yeah, that's all for the first topic. So like any comments on it?
Thanks. Josh, I'm glad that you guys are paying attention to this. The um, the alt tags that were defined, those attributes that were defined, um, we need to revisit those as to make sure that they're not using. Say it again. So anyway, I'm glad that they're being filled in. That really does help with SEO. It is really important. We actually need to make sure that they have that they're actually descriptive, because of the alt attributes that I saw. Um, uh, it was gobbledygook. All right, it didn't describe the actual image that was there. It was just like, I don't know, some shorthand stuff, which is good for like passing the test, but bad for actually being helpful in terms of SEO, or being helpful in terms of a blind person viewing the site. There's another attribute as well that we should consider. It's the title attribute. Um, does anyone off the top of their head recollect, like for an image tag in HTML, you'd use the alt attribute to as a written descriptor of what the image is about. There's a title attribute as well, and I can't remember if that's also on images or if that's only is that only on a tags or
Which attribute?
oh, Nikhil, say it again.
Which attribute are you?
Oh, title.
Yeah, so basically images do have title attribute also, but like more commonly only the alternate attributes are being used. So yeah, we can just someone of from you or Shruti can just have a look on what exact description needs to be provided for of the images. And also one more point to add in this topic itself is the meta uh, meta descriptions. So like for the layer 5 landing page, I've added a meta description, but like for each of those individual pages, even like let's say the blogs or the projects or the individual projects, we need to add those. And so like I just wanted to ask, like are we going to use the older ones, or we are going to have some revamp of data over there also?
Yeah, for the most part, the older ones are still accurate. Like the current generation sites, um, metadata tags, the description that they use, it's the for the most part, like those would carry over. If they don't carry over, it's maybe one of a couple of things happening. One is just that the description itself it is in fact dated and needed to be updated anyway, or we have a new page. Like if we do have a new page on the new site, we wouldn't have had a description for it previously. But yeah, moving over the existing descriptions and the metadata. Very. By the way, the topic of SEO itself is probably something of a uh, topic unto its own about the fact that like I guess a good question. We have an SEO plugin now on the new site. Is that right?
It's a React component.
Okay. Oh, I see. And does that React component come from? Is it derived from a plugin?
It, it's from a pre-built npm package. I think it's React Helmet or something like that.
Yeah, it's helmet.
Okay. Nice. So maybe not the topic for this moment, but certainly a topic to ensure, like particularly as we move into, hopefully as we go to use Strappy, this will be a bit more in people's faces, I guess. Like as they go to contribute a blog post, those fields will be there as well. They'll probably need to provide an excerpt for the post, a description for the metadata, some tags, some keywords. It would be ideal if we could enforce best practices around a requiring of an alt attribute for the images through Strappy. That would be good. Or potentially, like if we're using an image component, if we're using an image component in React, that component have a requirement for an alt description, an alt attribute. Is that possible?
Uh, it will be like Strappy will we will just be writing markdown in Strappy. So I don't think Strappy itself will be able to enforce adding the alt tag, but we can probably do it in the site. But if we do that, then a person will write a blog in Strapi and then redeploy the site, and he will find out that the site is broken.
Right. Okay. This is a good. This is something for us when we walk through Strappy. Um, this is one of those items for us to kind of ask ourselves, like, is there a way of um, I guess I'm surprised. This again. This is probably a topic for another time, but uh, I'm surprised that people would be writing Markdown in Strappy. Um, now, I'm not surprised that they would have the ability to, but I would have thought that it would have been more of a WYSIWYG interface. And so,
Uh, I just had a question like if the user writes a block in Strapi and if he uploads an image, so we can add an option to add a caption to the image and then the caption can be linked to the alternative.
but
We, yeah, in that case, we will have to figure out a way to not use Markdown as Lee was saying, and write have particular places to add the images. Not sure how would that work.
to news, so these are good topics. I suspect for like we should have a or maybe to news maybe after you have had some time to digest Strappy and maybe one or two other people as well, that maybe we would do a session on dedicated to Strappy and what it is and how we think we're going to use it. And,
Okay. Yeah. About that Strapi also, the credentials which were in the doc, there is a username and a password, but when I try to log into Strapi, it's asking for an email. So I have asked Abhishek also. Maybe he will tell me. Mm.
gotcha.
Uh, I just wanted to confirm this. I don't have any idea about strapping. So, writing the blog in strapping is the person will be writing Markdown or simple English and it will be changed to Markdown.
We we can do both, but using if we use Markdown, uh, the user will have flexibility to add images whenever he wants, wherever he wants in the blog. But if we are using a simple text, then we will have to define a particular places where the text, where the image should be present in the blog.
Okay, so means I was just considering like if you see the Medium site, medium.com, where people write blogs, they provide an option to add different stylings, so you can add an image, and they also provide an option to add captions to image. So I guess they may be using Markdown in the backend. They would somehow convert the text and show it in different ways. So I haven't checked that if the caption is added as the alt itself. That I can check from the site by inspecting it. But maybe we can look something up, try something.
Cool. All right. What's next?
Okay, so I'll just inform, or I can say like I'll just like to tell that uh, if anyone of you are like adding a blog post or a project or something of a news article, then like do just create another issue for Layer 5 NG website as well, because I didn't notice, and when I was like visiting the, like I was just comparing both the websites, I found two blogs are missing on the Layer 5 NG website. And so I just created issues for them, like they were announced around a month ago and they are not like present on Layer 5 NG. So like for community members it's easy to create a single issue for both of them, but I think for blogs or projects it won't be so. But yeah, we can just create two issues at the same time and like make one a subsidiary of the other or something. Yeah, so moving on next, so Shriti, can you just scroll down?
Yeah, sure. Okay. And Josh, is that okay?
Yeah, yeah, sure. I think the topic is with like I Tanuj, is this your topic, the progressive stepping?
I think most of the things already discussed. Yeah.
Okay, so moving on next is the URL mismatch part. So like it hasn't been discussed, and I think like if likely is this the correct time to discuss it right now?
The URL mismatch on, yeah, I think so. Like between the current site and the next site.
Yeah, so like basically again we do have two options, and we did have much of discussion on it, but I don't think we reached on a conclusion. So either we use EURL attribute or something like something of that sort, or just create redirects for the link for the older URLs or something like that.
Oh, right. Okay. So the issue here for everyone else is um, sorry, I was thinking about code scanning on the Layer 5 repo. The issue here is that as all of you are taking the current Jekyll-based Layer 5 IO website and porting it to Gatsby React-based Layer 5 NG, the next generation website, that not all of the permalinks, like the structure of the URLs and the permalinks to each of the individual pages, will necessarily translate in the same way. Much of that, or at least not automatically. And by that, we mean that some of the permalinks or all of the permalinks on the current site are created based on a parameterized or a variabilized template for things like, hey, did you want the date in the URL or the category in the URL, or whatever that scheme was to be? And as we transition, there's a new Gatsby plugin that you configure to do the same thing. Like, and it's, and the scheme that we've chosen is one of like layer5io/blog/category/ a slugified version of the blog post title, which slugified meaning that all capital letters have been lower, everything has been lowercased. Any white spaces have a hyphen between them. And, but I think there's one behavioral caveat in terms of the differences between how the Slugify plugin that we're using works. I thought it had to do with the use of maybe a couple of things, like one, the use of numbers, two, was it white space and hyphenation? I don't remember. But anyway, irrespective, it sounds like the plugin that we're using now, we've tried our best to make sure it's doing the exact same thing. Turns out we're only able to get it so far. There's a couple of edge cases that are gotchas for us. And so a couple of ways of addressing I don't know if I captured all of the issues there, but basically we have existing URLs that have been indexed and are shown in web searches. not all of those exact URLs are going to show up and be available on the new site. Some of that is intentional because we're restructuring, the information architecture of the site is being restructured. Okay, so we're not going to have some of those URLs will go away, but the links that people have on other sites pointing to Layer 5 IO, what are those backlinks? Or some of the search engines indexing, it will still show what would ultimately be an invalid link. So how do we make sure that those links still work and people still land on the intended page? One way is to use a redirect from plugin, such that if someone lands on a URL that there isn't a page for, that we can say redirect from that link to the page that we desire. Yes, we have use cases for that plugin, and we should use that plugin. And I think that I might not be thinking about it enough, but that might be the answer holistically. Like, even in the case of like a mismatched, slugified blog name, the redirect from will help and work. Josh, is the consideration that we have, is the question between using redirect from or using permalinks? Or is it more like, should we use and define permalinks statically, or should we let the plugin do its own thing?
Yeah, so like basically it was just the two options. If anyone discovers the third option, like we'll be happy to like discuss that one also.
So right now, the mechanism that we're using is there's a a plugin to slugify post title names. In the case that we have a mismatch between for a blog post, I would think that we would, where we can, we want to avoid doing things statically, meaning maybe we wouldn't want to use manually define the permalink there as much as maybe we would just use a redirect from. Because manually defining the permalink then means if you ever want to restructure that content, it wouldn't be flexible in terms of, it wouldn't be flexible.
Yeah, so like okay, so we'll just look into how we can just like for a few of them. So like basically for blogs, I don't think it won't be like much impactful, but yeah, some of the projects are also like they would be the highly indexed thing of the website. So yeah, that needs to be like done.
And the current site uses redirect from a Jekyll plugin for, I think most of the projects, if I recall, they have a couple or more redirect froms
Yeah, yeah,
defined.
yeah.
So if this is too abstract, like an example here is something like when you want to tell people about the SMI, the service mesh interface work that the community is doing. Well, it's easy to hand someone a link when you're chatting with them and you say, yeah, oh, hey, you know what? Just go check out layer5.io/SMI. That's like, I'll do that a lot. Like, that's very convenient for me. Although the permalink there, like the actual link to that content, it's actually spelled out service mesh interface. So for me, just even being able to use that shorthand is very helpful, easy to pass along to people. So yeah.
Yeah, so those links are also like those redirects are also implemented in the Layer5 website, the shorthands and those. So yeah, that's like I think that would be uh, done. And so like, do I move to the next topic or we stop for the introductions from Augustine and Radoslav.
Let's stop for 2 minutes, if that's okay.
Yeah,
All
sure.
right. Yeah. All right. So we have this tradition of people who are joining the calls for the first time to introduce themselves and say a little about yourself. Say anything that you want to get started with, and we'll help you out. Augustine, do you want to go first?
Hey, hello, good afternoon, everyone.
Hey.
Good. Um, I really don't have right now. I don't have anything to say right now.
No, yeah, no, he does. Let me help with
All right. Okay. 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 Good afternoon, sir. Currently, we've been working on UI design for service mesh page to make it look world class. I think I'll share a link of it right now, a Figma link, so everyone can check it out.
Sure.
I'll say I'm currently like working as the Figma guy for the UI design, so I'm trying to make something out. Where is this? Okay. Okay, so that's my. I will drop the link in the chat section.
Is that the SMP page on the Layer5 site? Augustine?
Yeah. Hello. Yeah.
Yeah, is that the SMP page on the Layer5 site? The UI?
The what?
The UI that
Yes.
you're working on?
And it's for the service match. Service match. The understanding the service match and why we consider service match.
Nice. All right, so Augustine is going to drop us a link. Moving on. Vladislav, welcome. And if I'm pronouncing that right, I'm so sorry. Please correct me.
Oh, it's perfect. It's perfect. No worries. Hello, all. My name is Radoslav. I'm totally new for the community. I still haven't started anything, any work on any project for the community. Still looking through the documentations and all the amazing things that you are done until now. And I'm waiting for any task that I could start and could handle. Regarding my experience, I'm working as a senior DevOps in one company, and right now I'm responsible for the project on which I'm working is to move their monolithic application to microservices in the cloud. I created design for them to have a multi-cloud environment for Azure and IBM Cloud because they are using this. And I also move uh, some of the first applications, divide them on containers and move them on a Kubernetes clusters. I also was responsible for everything from the building of the clusters to dividing the application, set up everything, implement some kind of monitoring. As you know, most popular at this point is Prometheus, Alert Manager, Grafana, FluentD or FluentBit for the logging, all these stuffs. Before that, I was working as a backup engineer for HP and HPE Enterprise. But this was a long time ago. I have experience also with backup softwares like HP Data Protector, Tivoli TSM, Net Backup, Backup Exec, and all the others.
Nice.
Regarding
That's
regarding regarding the coding, I'm able to use Bash, Python. These are most of the scripting languages that I'm using on my daily basis.
nice. That's quite an impressive list. And I'll let Lee talk because I can see that he wants to.
Radoslav, I was just going to, I think you had me earlier when you said, that you've yet to take on a task, but we're, sort of open to one. And as soon as you said that, I pulled out the meat hooks over here. I was just going to, sink them in. Um, that, that's great. Actually, Radoslav, I appreciate for my part, and I know the others on the call, Makul is an example, and there's others on the call who appreciate the breadth of technologies that you've worked with. Having a having a broader perspective really helps when, as we're approaching a lot of challenges across the projects. There's one doc that I'm surprised how much use or how many times I've pointed it out to people. I suspect you might have seen it before, and I'm looking up in the top, the links at the top of this meeting minutes. I don't know that the particular document is called out, but I think you'd find it under the welcome newcomers. There's it. Shriti, if you don't mind, can you scroll to the top under welcome newcomers? There's a link to the Layer5 repository overview, which is kind of a neat way of and you might have seen this already, Radoslav, but it's a nice way of coming to understand the various technologies that are being used and a super high level description of them on a per category base, a per repo basis. So, yeah, Shriti, if you click on the welcome newcomers. Nice. And then I'm assuming there will be a repo overview.
There should be.
A little bit further down.
Yep. There you go.
Nice. Cool. Anyway, that's a good one to check out because your interests might be varied, and so perusing that doc is a good one. There's a Radoslav. Have you curious now that I'm going to put you on the spot just because I feel quite comfortable to do that, I guess, is so I mentioned Makul a second ago, and some of the work that he had done had been in and around GitHub Actions and use a number of workflows in GitHub Actions for each of the repositories. A lot of the workflows are focused on, like, they fall in context of continuous integration, but it might be time to expand a little outside of that. Like one of the contributors had used a GitHub action to invoke, to deploy a kind cluster, and then to begin to do some more or less like integration tests of Meshery. So that they would toss up the kind cluster, then invoke Meshery's functionality to deploy a couple of meshes and do different things. And I'm using that as an example to say there's a lot that we can do within a workflow. One of the things that is, in a very simple way, has kind of pained us in the past has been, and it continues to, and that is every time that we go to make a release of any of the projects, can you scroll down, Trudy? Any of the projects, we've got to go over and update the project documentation There's a page that talks about what each versioned release of the project is and kind of what was included. And that's actually a bunch of or some manual tasks that we don't need to do. Like we need to have a GitHub action that just
Just
copies.
populate them.
Yeah, because the release notes are already there. We
Mhm.
already create those. They're incorporated as part of the release packet. Like if you, it should be the case for, well, for the majority of the, well, or I should say it like this, any repo that you go to in the Layer5 IO org that has a release that's been made, any project that's had a release that's been made, it'll have release notes. And those are auto-generated for us based on the activities in the repo. So there's a small GitHub action called release drafter that we didn't write, but just is available as an action. It will, anytime that a PR is merged, that release drafter action is invoked. It captures up details of the particular PR that's being merged, and it just appends um, uh, appends the link and the name of the PR, and it kind of categorizes it based on if there's a label on the PR. It might say it was a new feature or a bug fix or something based on the label, but it just automatically, it helps create some release notes. And then when we make the release, those release notes are right there, but those release notes haven't, there isn't an automatic transition over to the GitHub pages that the documentation runs in. And the thing is, the GitHub pages, it runs on the same docs that are in the same repo, in a different markdown file. So it's like, it's kind of silly. We just need to have like a copy of that markdown in a different file. And so anyway, I'm not saying you need to, that's something that rather, I guess what I'm trying to call out is that I think a lot of times we'll have meetings and we'll talk a lot about coding things. And that's awesome. The funny thing is we're coding a lot of things for DevOps use cases, and there's like all kinds of DevOps things going on, but we don't, and yet we don't have a DevOps meeting, or like we're not talking about, hey, when you deploy Meshry into AKS, you've got to reconfigure such and such because because the cluster admin role is disallowed, or whatever those particulars are. And there's actually like a lot of them. It strikes me actually, there was an individual in the community last week. His name's Jesus Lerma. He actually suggested a DevOps, like something of a regular DevOps meeting, just because there's enough topics there. And so, not that I'm pigeonholing you into a DevOps thing. I heard the word DevOps, and so. Anyway, all right, good. Now I'm prattling on, but Radoslav, nice to have you. It's good to have you on a call. Hopefully there's a number of things that strike your fancy.
Thank you.
All right, Josh, you can go ahead with the URL mismatch thing.
Yeah, so the UL mismatch is already discussed. The next topic, can you just scroll down? Yeah, so the next topic is the progress on Layer 5 ng website. So like, can you just open the Layer5 ng netlify.app, or
Sure.
yeah. And the community members page. So it would be in the navbar itself. Yeah, so just an addition by a contributor, Ayush Bansal. The like current now we do have a drop down to select for the members and maintainers, and so yeah, just you can. So if you just create on maintainers or any of those, and you just get a filter of all those things. So currently it is like we haven't created a separate page like meshmates for the maintainers. So we are just doing it in the page itself, and like using some state functions, and like yeah. And uh, so any comments on this?
Josh, curious, the state functions, are those, what kind of, boy, I'm going to ask some really ignorant questions. Redux, is that implicated here?
No, this is just using GraphQL.
Oh, I see. When the filter is applied, the page itself is not reloaded, correct? This is the user stays on the same page. We're just filtering the.
Yeah, basically, yeah. It just like the page remains the same, but the data that gets like replaced by the other one.
Okay. A
Uh,
couple of things. Yeah.
yeah, please.
This isn't with respect to the filters, but something that Josh or others that you might toss up like a GitHub discussion or toss in a discussion in Slack, if you like, about whether or not folks would like to have support for a LinkedIn profile. Because I think we only built in GitHub and Twitter, and maybe.
Yeah, that could be a nice idea, I think so. Yeah, I'll just let people, like, I'll just ask people and let their views come to me.
The Meshmates filter, that will be fantastic to have. The maintainers filter will be is looking, from my perspective, like looking great. There's the nice thing about the page is that there's a lot of space. The bad thing about the page is that there's a lot of space.
Yeah, so my intention on coming on this page was like I was going to address that, like, we do need to have something of redesigning, or like something could be done on this page, I think so.
Addition of time zones.
Addition of, say it again?
Time zones. Time zones.
Oh, time zones.
No, so like I was just talking about the design or some structure part, not about the like extra data. Yeah, so we can also have, like, we can discuss on that even, but uh, something like I'm not like disrespecting the green color of the website or the brand,
How
but
dare you? How dare you? What? That's it. All right. That's. I'll have to tell everyone a story about how the green came to be. You can't. What do you? You can have too much green? Is that possible? Is that a thing? Is that? Josh, I don't know if you were going to say this, but I don't particularly have a strong opinion here. If you could, but it might be the case that yeah, if we. So we're indicating currently between gray and green whether or not a community member is currently active or currently inactive. Those that are inactive, we want to show appreciation and recognition to for the time that they'd spent in the past, and understand that they may very well come back again in the future. People do that all the time. I wish that it was automated, the difference between active and inactive, but we're unable to do that because just by someone like Radislav showing up to a meeting, like, hey, that's being active, just that act alone, programmatically determining that is too hard for us. That isn't what you were exactly going to bring up, but were you going to suggest that maybe there's a lot of green going on?
I won't speak now. I think.
No, it's no.
Yeah. I get your point. Yeah. So that's, I think, my personal opinion, but yeah, the
Sure.
it's not like it's not looking bad, but it's like it's good, but we can do better, I think.
Yeah.
Like I have an idea over here. So for the cards, we can have kind of like SVG backgrounds animated. Like each time when we hover the cards, we'll get an like same pattern, but kind of like animation inside the card.
Oh, like we have for Meshmate as well.
Yeah, like
Like the
I'm
card
sharing the
that,
link.
like not here, but there was a card that I saw that on which, like, when there was a Hacktober meetups. So the card that used to get attached with the presenter of the call. So it had a kind of animation that could go well. And I also think that card shape change, like making rectangles to something like maybe uh, hexagonal or something. We can like try something out with that.
Yeah, like highlighting the text of the name, like any other thing. Possibilities are endless, but yeah, we need to figure out.
Just a suggestion, but maybe what we can do is when you hover, it'll change to a hexagon and it'll increase a little bit in size, just to highlight that okay, it changed.
Any other
uh,
suggestions? Anybody?
I think we can just keep the discussion open, and like everyone can just toss upon and open up request, pull request, and we can like we
Kind of
can
like a
get a better
pool.
idea if we see how it looks like. So like yeah, we just appreciate the suggestions from Ayush, Pratyay, and Nupur, and like we would love to see how your idea gets implemented over here.
Yeah, sure. Like if I'll get time, I'll create a pull request with the changes. So yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah, thanks.
In the meantime, can someone in this Jazz if you can include the pagination plugin for this page? Since there are a lot of images, this particular page takes a lot of time.
I don't think I hear you right. Did you talk about pagination plugin, Nikhil?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, right.
Yeah, I can do that.
Also, like a curiosity question, like in the layer 5 website, we do have 4 cards per row, and in this website, we do have 3 cards per row. So, was it intentional or like something just?
Just to keep the reduce the white space. Just as this
Yeah, okay. Sure.
to
Uh,
make this side page more compact. I don't know, something.
It will be a good idea because we don't have so much data inside every card. Like for people having Twitter and GitHub, and for the Macemates having the Macemate logo. Apart from that, we don't have anything right now. So we can implement 4 cards in each row.
uh, yeah, so I think that's so. Any other uh, things to be discussed for this, or like I just hop on to the next subtopic of this topic?
I just had one question. Like, if you like the current card which you're hovering over, just uh, there's a circular image. The color of the card gets into the image. So, is it intentional or it's happening on its own?
Hmm. I don't guess I do have the answer. Is Tanuj?
Maybe it's auto-generated, kind of like it picks the square image out of the rectangular image, and if it fits, then it fits, and if don't, then like there is kind of like a green space over the active region, whatever say like that.
I think it's trying to fit it in the uh, space that is available, and if it cannot, it is not stretching the image. Just it's trying to fit it, and but some images don't fit. So because of that, that space is left.
Right. And those images in particular are, in fact, they're quite large. And so, yeah, there's a couple of things that we should take notes on in the meeting minutes. So one is trying to, get the images fit. Two is the solicitation of comments on whether or not LinkedIn profile, LinkedIn icon might be nice for people. Um, Another one is the suggestion, yeah, to move from 3 to 4. I think I would probably raise my hand to vote for 4, or to at least vote to see what that looks like. When we do that, it might also be the case that the social links, perhaps they would be removed from here. And I'm not saying that they need to be. I'm just saying, like, hey, if we run out of room, if we're put 4 on a row, those social links, if you were to click into Abhishek, into the card, that there's room in here to say, well, this is his area of focus. This is the time zone that he's in. Here's all of his social links, and his favorite color is purple.
Yeah, yeah. Then having a single page makes more sense.
But what you are suggesting is that let's say when we hover over an image, then it expands, right? We can include that extra information there.
uh,
We can, but the
I
we
think
have
that won't be looking that much good. What we can do that we can, since we are keeping the image as it is, we are not using kind of like a URL or something. So we can crop the image in 1:1 ratio and then keep it there. Extra work, but yeah, it will solve the issue.
mm,
But then again, it is possible that we lose the face or a part of it.
yeah, and every time you someone we we have to crop the image manually, which is not feasible every time.
Yeah, that's the issue.
All right. Hey, two topics, if I could interject briefly. One is, and sorry, we can come back to this, but is Shivai, you don't, no pressure today, but curious, it is a gaping issue, is the mega menu flickers. Is that something that you've been able to look at? If Shivai is still on? Yeah, he is. So I'll say Shivai another time just to get your attention. But Shivai, if you looked at the mega menu, great. If not, maybe for next time. And so, yep, Shivai, you're on mute just in case. But moving on to the other topic is, well, I
Just
couldn't help.
one thing, like before we move on. For the filter part, is it good or an improvement if we add a legend, or is it fine like that?
Yeah, I think so. That'd be nice. Yeah, like a color coded legend. That you mean like inside the drop down, if there's a color coded.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
that makes sense to me. Yeah, particularly what I would, I'll be honest and say like, Shweety, can you please go to the filter? And actually, if you drop down the filter, I'll be honest and say that it gives an opportunity. If you just hit the back button, it gives an opportunity to show off the other colorized version of the Meshmates logo. So Shri, there you go. Because the current version of the Meshmates logo that's being used is Sriti, if you please scroll down to someone that has Meshmate in their link. It's the,
It's not embedded in the site.
oh, I see.
If I'm
Okay,
not
it's not here. Okay, no, okay. But yeah, thanks for that suggestion, Nikhil.
uh,
There it is.
so
Oh, it actually
On,
is. The English people.
interesting, I thought Abhishek was also. I made mistake.
oh,
No,
Abhishek. Yeah,
no, he's not.
I thought Abhishek was also this one, so I was mistaken.
there's a standing rule about people whose favorite color is purple. That's just. um, so, I wish he were here.
Abhishek really should be here to defend himself.
uh,
Yeah, Josh, go ahead. Hit
yeah,
the other.
so just an addition to either a footer or the header. So currently we do not have link to the programs page anywhere in the either in the footer or the mega menu. So like Shriti, can you just go to the footer?
Yeah, we need to add those two
Yeah, so
components.
like we do have separate links for GSOC, GSOD, and community, but we do not have something for the programs because because they are embedded into the single page, I guess. So like it won't be feasible to, like, we do also have MLH fellowship program, and then we do have the uh, Hacktoberfest program. So it won't be feasible to add all of those in. So like a call for like what nodes to be done.
Also, adding to Jash's point, like since now we have all the content migrated from the previous site to the site, it's high time that we decide what options can populate in the nav menu. Or we can
Nikhil
redesign the
said,
navigation. The navigation menu, like what
"Oh,
points we
yeah,
need to add and what.
totally, totally." There's a couple of tasks that I'll go take I need to go take a first crack at. I mean, one of the tasks is that I need to go review the alt tags. Josh said it in the politest of ways that, Haley, if you're going to complain about the alt tags, maybe you should like go write up some alt tags. And sort of the same thing on the menu. I don't have to have the final say per se on the menu, but probably in best position to go take a crack at what that is. You're right. The footers, hopefully we'll have MLH and we'll have blah, 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 like outreachy and others. And so, yeah, just either the word programs or internships or something. I'm not like programs is a nice generic word. Unfortunately, it's like too generic. It could mean any number of things, but to Josh's point is like, hey, that needs to be pulled down. Having mailing list called out specifically, like, it's not worthy enough. Speaking of the mailing list, Josh, I think we still have the gray background in there. That it'd be good to give that a second thought.
Yeah, I'll just open up an issue. Like I'll just look into it.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah.
One last thing to add to, like in many of the pages we are adding a header to the site, which is the current page location, you can say, like home, then an arrow, and suppose community or home arrow block. But in some pages we are not adding. So is it good? Does it looks good to add it or remove it completely from our?
So I'm going to share my screen just because I don't, so that one, Shriti, that you might be able to take some of those notes about the action items, and then two, because I don't know what Nikhil is talking about if we don't look at it. So Nikhil, you're
If you go to block, over it, it's visible over this page also. Yeah, home arrow relaxing. So
we've
do
got
we
the
need that?
good question.
I think it kind of like reduces the UI space. I don't know, like I feel that.
Here's a decent example of where a user is navigated two down. Um, huh. For my part, I think I'll have to say I don't know, or I don't know if we have enough examples of where this would actually genuinely be helpful. The blog is what first comes to mind. I'm like, oh hey, you that you might be kind of deep in, like filtered here and filtered here or something. I do know that of the concept that we've spoken of about learn.layer5.io, in which people would go through any number of different courses with individual labs, and they'll be sort of hip deep in the content, a breadcrumb trail or a hey, where am I feature like that, I think could be helpful. Here, if people are like at most 1 to 2 levels deep, yeah, are we wasting precious, landscape, screenscape?
So if we plan to keep it in future, like okay, that comes out to be a good suggestion, good thing to keep. I think we can add links to the text. Like if we are home arrow block to a particular block, then clicking on block should direct us to the block page. Or if you go to the meshmates page,
Shivai, that mega menu has to be fixed.
yeah. So
Yeah, I'll be working on that this week, Lee.
Thank you. Cool. Good, good, good.
so here we have three layers like home, then community, then measurement.
Oh
So
yeah,
if
they should
we
definitely be
click on
clickable.
yeah, that was
Yeah, totally. Otherwise, it's pretty worth. I mean, yeah.
I think it would be worth it if we add like hyperlink over it, like on the home, on the community, on the mesh bit. So it will more useful to navigate. Like if you like click on community, you can like go back instantly to a community page. I mean, there will be some correlation rather than just having a text. Just a suggestion.
Yeah, that's a good point though.
Adding to what he just said, I don't think that it would be that much useful because anyways in the navigation menu we have home and community specified. So all in all, if you see, then you are only one level deep.
All right. I'm gonna take the notes if no one else is. You guys are gonna watch me take the notes. We've got a call out for LinkedIn profile. Whether or not people would like to see that, we've got the colorized filters legend.
uh, just to add a thing like are we going with that community world map that I did show? So for that I'll just have to also call out all the members and just have a rough idea of the countries or the places from where they do come.
Yeah, time zone. And then Shridi or anyone else, if you guys want, I'm just trying to capture the topics real quick. If you guys want to write down an actual sentence that describes so time zone on profiles, which will facilitate the global map that Josh had suggested.
Just a little thing. Lee, can you go to the landscape page?
Wow. Yeah, we definitely need
Projects,
to.
projects. Inside
Yeah,
projects.
yeah, I did fix some of the issues, but the
Inside
flickering part is
projects,
still there.
projects. Yeah, landscape. So I think like the timeline needs to have a kind of like connector between the two dots, as you can see. If you scroll down,
Okay. Oh, you know what? Actually, one moment. And let me just say this: that uh, it is. We're 8 minutes after, and so I know other people might have a call that they're late for, or they might just it might just be time to go. It's been an hour and 10 minutes. Um, I want to continue this conversation, and I have time. That doesn't mean that everyone else does or should be made to stay. So if it's time for you, thank you for coming. Um, we'll take meeting minutes so you can catch up. But if it's time for you to go, please do. Thanks for being here. And anyone else who wants to stay, do. And so, all right, going over. Okay, go ahead.
so I
Fateh.
was like talking about like if you see the timeline over there, we need to have kind of like connector between the two dots. Yeah, between the dots, those dots, that we have in the layer 5 IO site.
Cool. You know what? So Gerald is the individual working on this, and he had very much signaled that like this is a work in progress. It's a draft, and it might be my OCD. I don't know, but it had been sitting out there for a couple of weeks. It was like I wanted to make sure he felt encouraged and his work was moving forward. So we just agreed, hey, look, the site isn't live. Let's go ahead and just merge your work. It will feel like a good step, and it is a good step. And so yeah, it's about halfway through. Now, Prati, I'm glad you brought this up because not only is this not done, but there's still open consideration for what visualizations should come to be when you take all this minutia, all this data, and you say, well, hey, maybe we should show a language blot graph. Is that right? Like, hey, what's the most popular language? Like you take a circle, you put Go inside of it, and you put it big and fat because there's a lot of them that are written in Go. You make a Scala one, and it's super tiny because
Okay, I mean like categorizing them to their priorities or like their kind of the numbers.
yeah, like Nikhil had identified. Nikhil said, "Hey, look, we got some dates. Maybe we should have a timeline showing when these things came out." Like, oh wow, that's really interesting and helpful to people to see how mature or young or what a project is. Okay, great. And then here's another category of data. How could we contrast this? Like, oh, I don't know. I
So
just made it
like
up.
I was first of all, it was his idea to bring the title. I just implemented it. And secondly, like I will ping Gerald if he is busy with other work. I would like to take the designing part of this speech for sure. Yes, I had few designs in mind, considering your recent point about adding the categorization for the most language used. I can think of few designs. So if he is not working, I would like to get this.
That's perfect. I don't mean to overspeak him. I'll say that one, he was, I think, just trying to do a like for like migration. So I don't think so I'm pretty sure he wasn't working on new visualizations. So the coast should be clear there. Two, he's been putting in some effort on a new
SNIT.
table. Yeah. And I think even at that, he's um, taking it through its pace. He doesn't have as he's not he has a day job, and so he's only moving it so quickly. So I think like the coast is clear. That's what I'm saying.
Sure. I look into it.
One other thing that I wanted to, I want for everyone to see this and for Austin Augustine, who also goes by Austin, which is nice, um, to see and to be able to give feedback is that Austin had just joined the
Yes,
community
sir. I'm with you, sir. I'm with.
and he had and I'm going to talk about Austin in the third person, even though you're right here. His we just jumped in and tossed out a design. It kind of jumped onto this issue here. So I'll just tee it up, Austin, and then maybe you could show your design. So like every single time that that we speak of a service mesh, and people are digesting it and thinking about maybe using one, they'll, in a very good way, they'll say, well, hey, what are the indicate like, hey, so how do I know when I really need one? What are the telltale signs? What pain points are service mesh is really addressing? And, like any good question, the answer is like, well, it depends on blah, 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 like all these considerations. And so this may not be all the considerations, but it's enough. So there's categories of things to consider, like how many services do you have as one thing to consider. If you only have one or two or three, then lightly begin to consider a service mesh. Maybe you'd want to do it up front so that you can grow with it over time. Maybe you would wait until you had a lot more. Then you would strongly consider a mesh. And um, so yeah, so Austin was going to try to take this tabularized data and make something of it. Austin, do you want me to pull up the design, or would you rather take the ball?
Oh, you can pull up design.
Okay. Okay, I think we put it into the meeting minutes. Yeah, there we go. And so, I'll let you speak to it.
right. Or is there a way I could share the design share my screen rather?
Oh, you know what? I'm sorry. Yeah, here. I didn't realize that the prototype that I'm looking at came up in a different screen. There
Okay,
you go.
great. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. The the design, okay. The first part of the design, the array section, was created with the service mesh functionalities in mind. Like if and when we translate this now to code, HTML and CSS, I would prototype it in a way whereby the developer knows on over or maybe on over of each of the properties or the functionalities of image. Maybe its skills and or it expands. So it's like the point of focus. So it takes the user's attention because we want to catch up with any user that is coming on the page, his attention while giving he or she good user experience. Because the words. I read a lot of things like the things the document Mr. Lee sent were so much. So if we put it in a real life situation, we do not want the user to come and say, "Oh, there's so much to read. There's this, there's that, there's this, there's that." We want the user to have like a good experience. Go straight to the point. They know what we are talking about, and they see what we are doing with the service mesh and why when they should deploy it, what they should look out for. It's going to convince them faster than because a lot of people just look at slides, and if you give them slides now and say, okay, read this, they have short attention span. So we have to the landing page was created in mind with the idea of getting the user's attention while giving them all the information at a glance with just less time. Even if they are spending 5 minutes on the landing page, we know we've convinced them and educated them while making them feel good while using the design. Okay, if this,
Yeah, if I scroll down, it's Austin. One thing that so I think I got the vision of what you were articulating here. That like if a user were to hover over observability, for example, that you might imagine that the features themselves, that observability, that additional information about observability is shown probably in text, and that the visualization probably rearranges itself, kind of organizes itself out of the way, and then shows some text off to the side that.
yes,
And
sir,
so
yes.
I was there's a couple of folks, Vinayak and others have worked on some animations that might fit around this. So is Vinayak still on? Not that you need to change this around. I just make sure people are. Oh, thank you. Yeah, there we go. So here's a newer one. Oh, that was cool. There's another one. For the life of me, I think was it Tanuj? You had worked on one that not only did you do the animate terminal or animated terminal, but you did also the feature.
Yeah. You go to slash animated terminal.
And then, oh, here we go. And so let me close this. That Austin, if you haven't seen this, or if others haven't seen this, super cool. Set of categories of functionality. Like if you imagine that. Yeah. Anyway, I'm trying to tie together two concepts. I'm not saying, hey, one needs to take the shape of the other, but just that you're able to navigate different, sections in a condensed way. Kind of an interesting. Okay. Anyway, Austin, back to you. So Come on down.
All right. So at this section, we highlighted some factors to consider while adopting service mesh. Then the other sections we now brought like give them more information or details about them. Although they are much, when we do a second design or add more and also spectrums to the design, but the initial design we had to tell we want to tell the user what each of the factors they are they should look out for should be about. The space, yeah, you might have noticed a lot of white space. Where I tend to fill those with text and maybe images and icons later on. Then the subscribe button, the subscribe section on the current website, it's great, but we could do better. We can do better rather. We can do better. So that was why I made another design of it. So the aesthetics and also the user experience is also there. Can do better. The aesthetics going to be yes. Sir.
Yeah, I
And
noticed
then I
Josh.
also did the redesign of the footer section where we can make it also look better and great. And if you notice, we we also use two different typefaces here because it, the design initial typeface we are using is amazing, but there is always this feel that comes when a user comes to your website and sees a not so common typeface for your brand. Like if you have a typeface that like if I don't know if anyone has noticed it, but if you check most of the designs online, a lot of brands have a unique typeface that isn't common. Many of them don't use Roboto, Montserrat. A lot of them rather use things like Inter, Poppins, DM Sans, and a few others. So that was why I went for a not so common typeface that looks exactly like Open Sans, but isn't Open Sans. So it's going to play a very good, a very important role in the design.
Um, so Austin, I'll withhold. I already gave feedback, but I'll withhold comment on the design here. Rather, I'll comment and compliment. Well, I guess you and Josh at the same time. That uh, I'll take a note from you guys. Actually, I thought that I did it okay, but you guys give feedback in the best of ways about, um, hey, this current design is awesome, but also right here, just sort of over here in general, it sort of sucks. That's not what you said, but I guess my I think it's great the way that both Josh and Austin gave feedback. Josh, I'm screwing up what Josh is working on by making new blog posts and not including them on both sites, and being a lazy bastard, not creating two issues, just one, and some other things. And Josh was very kind in the way that he highlighted it. Same for
All right,
Austin.
can I chip something in, sir? Can I chip something in, sir?
Oh yeah, please.
Okay, the initial design is great, but one thing we should look out for is to always iterate our design, like design with an open mind that we are always going to adopt something new, like always iterate. I would suggest an installation of Hotjar on the Layer 5 website.
Can you
Hotjar on Layer 5
repeat
and
the name?
Mesh. Hotjar. You can just search on Google for it. Hotjar. Hotjar.
Hot
That
jar.
will allow us know what's like its map of the website. Visualize where the engagement is coming from, where users are living, where users are focused on. That way, we can now optimize and keep iterating and making the design and websites and the whole system very good. We know where we are getting more clicks from, where users are stopping. Like maybe if a user gets confused, you know when they leave the page early. So the heat map will also allow us monitor all those with Hotjar. Hotjar will be very great if we keep iterating. In the next 6 months, we'll keep iterating, changing and making and doing user research. In the next 6 months, you you yourself will be amazed by what your design will look like. Because good design is also going to make the business the whole system stand out. Right. That's my suggestion.
Yeah, so basically we were just looking for someone like uh, a visual designer like you, to make us aware of things that we can be using. And yeah, I totally get the, like, I also appreciate the designs that you have just worked upon. And I think like we can work together for the page. And like uh, I can just convey you a few things. And like you can just make it uh, far better than me, I guess.
We can work together, share ideas because with okay, you said me making it better. Most times when we are doing user testing currently. Like you give me your feedback, I give you my feedback. You might use a design right now and you will not like a feature on it. I might use the design and I will love that feature. So we have to do user testing, which is why we appreciate working with you closely. By the time we are done with the user testing, as we've done currently, although the design is not live, when we do more user testing, like now, if you go to the current website, you can pick one or two things you are not satisfied with or you love. Another person can still do user testing and find they are not satisfied with another particular feature. So we'll definitely share ideas on doing that and making it better, both in the user interface and the user experience. And then I will appreciate if we could get someone like a user researcher or because it also helps. It also helps because you have to know we have to do competitive analysis also. That will allow us in our design stand out because it's not only going to be infrastructure every time code. The knowing what your competitors are doing and knowing why they are doing it is important because we might want to just implement one thing or another and we don't know why our competitors are doing them. It's not so just be like we are just copying them. So we have to know why. We have to know competitive analysis, what will make us stand out and what we are not doing and what we should do. So I will really appreciate and look forward to working with you.
If folks don't know who with whom we're competing, come see me. I'll give you a few links. Um, boy, I could be on this call for another 5 hours. I'm good with that. But I recognize most probably aren't. Shweety, anything else we need to cover?
Um, well, there was another topic, but I guess we'll take it up in the next meeting.
Just one question, Lee. The Strappy that we have deployed, is that the final production version we are going to use?
No, I would go use it as a learning playground to do whatever you need to do to.
Okay.
It can't. I mean, it can be. It can be unless you want to go mess it up. Then go ahead, if that makes sense.
No, I was asking because if it is the production version, I can try to incorporate inside the Gatsby. If it is not, I can just use to how we can use that, I can try it out, not specifically destroying what I had done currently with the markdown stuff.
Maybe the right thing to do is let's give it a shot. Let's see if we can make that the production instance, understanding that if it gets messed up, it's okay. We can try again. There's one plugin, and so by the way, if not everyone is familiar with Strappy, just this is the site you can go. There's a plugin that's missing. The plugin is for AWS S3. And the S3 plugin would help facilitate media storage. So if you're using, if people who are writing blog posts or writing new news articles or other things on Layer5 they would go sign into this Strappy content management system interface, hopefully write up a blog post in a WYSIWYG way, in something of a controlled way as well, so that there's consistency across how images are presented in terms of like making it easy to center or left align, right align, to make sure that the images are thumbnail versions are auto-generated and all those kinds of things. But that as people upload media, an image or a video or what have you, using this interface, that media needs to be stored somewhere. Today, we're storing the media in GitHub, in the GitHub repo. That's fine, but Strappy doesn't directly leverage GitHub as a media repository. Thank you, Nupur. Talk to you very soon. Strappy doesn't use that as a repo directly, rather uses S3. That plugin is dysfunctional in that environment at the moment, but hopefully be something that would be fixed.
Yes, so I can currently just see how without image how we can incorporate Strappy and how to write the blog post. What is the best way?
Nice. Perfect. What was the other topic, Shriti? Oh, versioning.
Yeah. I've got Shankar Ghosh on it, who volunteered to help. I'll talk about it in the next meeting. If anybody else wants to come and help, they can.
Oh, Shanko. Yeah, good. Cool. Well, thank you all very much. If you would, one last ask from me is, if any of these, if it's appropriate for any of these to become a GitHub issue or just a point of discussion, if you would briefly slap your name down on it and create an issue. Let's be diligent, open
Sure,
sourcers.
I'll do that. All right. Well, that's it. Thank you for staying for an extra half an hour. See you next week.
Thank you all. Thank you, Shriti. See you
Bye,
guys.
everyone.
Bye.
Do have a nice day. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, Augustine. Bye.
All right. Thank you for having me. Bye bye.